A breadboard is an easy-to-use prototype board that can be used to create circuits without permanently soldering the components. A breadboard comes in various sizes. The most common ones are full-size breadboards, half-size breadboards, and mini breadboards. Each of these has a different number of pins and has a slight change in its connections. Now let's look at how the pins on a breadboard are connected. Some breadboards have power rails that run the entire length of the breadboard. Either side of a breadboard contains two power rails in which all the pins of the same sign are connected to each other. The pins on the positive side are isolated from the pins on the negative side. The positive side of the power rail is connected to the positive of the battery or power source, and the negative side is connected to the negative of the battery. These power rails can come in handy if we want to power multiple components with the same power source. Next, let us look at the pins in the middle of the breadboard. These pins are called terminal strips, where we will be connecting our components. The row number is written on the breadboard. Note that the pins on the same row number are connected with each other. This means that you cannot connect two components that are on two different rows. They have to be in the same row. We can also see a small gap between these rows, which will separate both sides from each other. So the row of 5 pins on the left will be isolated from the row of 5 pins on the right side. This image shows how the pins on a breadboard are connected. Now let's create a small and simple circuit using a breadboard to understand how the breadboard works. We will be using a bulb, a 9-volt battery, and a half-size breadboard. To create the circuit, we will be using Tinkercad. We have a new project opened up in Tinkercad. Now, let us add a breadboard to the workspace. For the power supply, we will be using a 9-volt battery. Just search for the battery and drag it into the workspace. After that, add a bulb. To create the circuit, first connect the positive terminal of the battery to the positive line of the power rail. Just like that, connect the negative of the battery to the negative line of the power rail. All the pins on the same sign of the power rail are connected. If we want to power any components, just connect them with the power rail. Next, connect the bulb in any of the terminal strip rows. Note that if you connect both the terminals of the bulb to the same row, it won't work. So each terminal should be in different rows. Terminal 1 is electrically linked to all the pins within the same row, whereas the pins in the terminal 2 row remain isolated from those in the other row. Now, to power up the bulb, we will connect terminal 1 to the positive and terminal 2 to the negative. To achieve this, we need to make a connection from the terminal 1 row to the positive power rail. Any pin within that row can be used, as each pin in that row is directly connected to terminal 1. Then connect it to the pin on the positive power rail. Just like terminal 1, connect the terminal 2 to the negative power rail. Use any one of the pins on the terminal 2 row and connect it to the pin on the negative power rail. We have completed our circuit. Now, to test it, click on the Start Simulation button. We can see that the bulb is now glowing. This image shows how the electricity flows within the circuit. A breadboard can become useful if you are creating any prototypes where we have to change the circuit as we run into any errors. While using it, be careful about the pins so that you don't connect the component to the wrong pin, which may damage some of the components. So always remember to double check before connecting the power source.